You're not saying you think Republicans are gonna stop it?
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
Gavin Newsom 2028 presidential campaign. He's grandstanding and making a clown of himself because he wants national attention. He tried the moderate thing for a month and realized it wasn't raising him any funds.
Picture this. Gavin Newsom, California's so-called golden boy, the man with hair straight out of a shampoo commercial, just got completely blindsided by none other than Lindi Li. And it was brutal. This wasn't a playful jab. It was a full-blown political roast, with hard-hitting facts flying faster than his approval ratings ever could. This wasn't your typical clapback either. It was the kind of takedown that makes you wonder if Newsom's stylist might also double as a PR crisis manager. Buckle up, because Lindi didn't just criticize him, she shredded his image and left him scrambling for the delete button.
Trump crusader, because he realizes that it helps him with his coffers and his fundraising. So that's why he's on a tear, and he's a complete hypocrite. And I just saw that California now leads the nation in homelessness and unemployment. Maybe he should focus on that.
This is a guy who retweeted himself on Mount Rushmore. This is a guy who retweeted himself, dare I say, as Pope.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's hawking a Trump Bible. This is a guy who's out there selling perfume and with one of the great grifts, a coin.
But I want to get to the Trump is not hot. So
this is a guy who has merchandise.
Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe. It helps more than you realize. Now Gavin Newsom has always cast himself as the polished poster child of politics. The perfect smile, the slicked back hair, the carefully rolled up sleeves. Like he's about to fix California with a couple of swings of a Pottery Barn hammer. He's the type of guy you can picture rehearsing hand gestures in the mirror before a press conference. Every shrug designed to ooze empathy, every smirk calculated to whisper his presidential ambitions.
He tried to be a moderate for about a month. I think it was April,
when
May.
he started his podcast?
Exactly. He started his podcast. He had Charlie Kirk on. He tried the moderate shtick. Realized that it didn't get him the donations that he wanted. And then he was like, wait a minute. Being an anti-Trump crusader actually gets me money. I want people to be aware that a lot of what politicians say on TV, on social media every day is to get the coffers, to get money rolling into the coffers, to get their fundraising.
But here's the problem with carefully polished images. Once there's a crack, the shine disappears fast. And along came Lindi Li, not with a scratch, but with a blowtorch. You might wonder, what could possibly rattle a man who's weathered wildfires, rolling blackouts, and even the chaos of San Francisco's brunch scene, all in one career? Well, apparently, it's being called out by someone who isn't dazzled by his Hollywood governor routine.
I do want to say that $1 billion in 100 days is not just run of the mill. This is astounding. And I have a duty of care to my donors who gave millions of dollars, and it wasn't easy for them to give. Some of them were paying in installments. It was a sacrifice for them. They looked for ways to give. So, people gave their hearts and souls to the campaign. They deserve a serious accounting to see why we were told that she was close or even winning in some of the swing states, but we lost all 7.
what did they say? We heard on the podcast, but what did they say on this call? Did they accept any blame? Did they sort of talk about mistakes that were made?
No.
While Gavin was busy perfecting his presidential poses and cinematic hair flips, Lindi Li showed up with evidence so devastating it made California's blackouts look like nothing more than mood lighting. Let's take a step back. Newsom has built his entire career on being the man who looks born to hold office. He doesn't just walk into a room, he glides in, like a cologne ad, making people instinctivly check their wallets. His brand rests on painting California as a shining utopia, with him as the sun-kissed leader holding it all together.
But not only did Gavin Newsom lie, he was the biggest liar. He was the one, and I was there. He was the one in the spin room lying to the entire world on the night of the debate, saying it was just a cold, nothing to see here, move along. But he is such a congenital liar.
But reality paints a very different picture. Homelessness is exploding at record levels. Taxes are so high they could make even Elon Musk cry into his stock options. Businesses are fleeing the state like it's the final round of Survivor. Yet somehow, Gavin still spins it as though California is thriving. Honestly, it's almost impressive. like watching a magician pull endless scarves from a hat while ignoring the elephant tearing the stage apart. And the audience kept clapping, right up until Lindi Li interrupted the act and basically shouted, "That's not a rabbit, it's a rat in a tuxedo." So who is Lindi Li? She isn't just some random voice firing off hot takes on Twitter between coffee runs. She's sharp, direct, and has a presence that cuts through Gavin's carefully polished image like a knife through cake. When she speaks, people pay attention. And this time, she didn't just throw shade, she shut off the lights. Her takedown wasn't the usual political mudslinging. She went straight for the failures, the cracks his smooth speeches can't cover. Take homelessness, for example. Gavin has poured billions into fixing it, yet the crisis only grows worse. Li called out the obvious. Throwing money at a problem without accountability isn't a solution. It's just an expensive Band-Aid that never sticks. And for a man who prides himself on being a fixer, being told he can't even manage to clear tents from sidewalks has to sting.
Focusing his time on this complete waste of taxpayer money. He has no agenda items. He has nothing positive to offer the American people. The only thing he cares about is himself. Everything is about him. And even Democrats understand this guy is truly fake. He's if you look up snake oil salesman in the dictionary, you would see his face right next to the definition.
I wasn't sure if it was going to be snake oil or hair grease or hair products, but you never know.
Actually,
probably both.
Then there's the mass exodus of businesses. California is supposed to be the land of innovation, the place where Silicon Valley types dream up apps that deliver artisan toast to your door. But lately, CEOs are loading their Teslas and speeding to Texas faster than you can say, "No state income tax." And Lindi Li made sure everyone noticed. Because if billion-dollar companies are ditching California for cowboy hats and barbecue, maybe the California dream isn't so dreamy anymore. But Li didn't stop there. She zeroed in on the hypocrisy, the ambition, the unspoken truth that Newsom seems more interested in polishing his presidential resume than actually running the state. To him, California feels like a practice stage, with every crisis serving as another line in his campaign audition. Meanwhile, everyday people are left wondering why their rent costs more than a Tesla Model 3 lease. And that's where the humiliation hit hardest. Newsom has built his entire persona on being untouchable, the cool kid at the political lunch table, the one with the clever comebacks, the practiced smirk, the aura of inevitability. But Li stripped that away. She didn't treat him like a future president. She treated him like a governor failing at his current job. She revealed a man who looks less like the future of the Democratic Party and more like a landlord promising to fix the plumbing next week.
Drives you crazy that people still speculate that you're waiting in the wings to run for president. I know it's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. But what do you think is fueling that speculation?
I don't know. I don't think much anymore. And I'm so proud of the president and the incredible job he did. Didn't surprise me at all. And I know it didn't surprise you. I really believe that. I said to my friend the other day, I said, you know, on this age, and we can get into debates around fitness. Look, I'd rather have 80 years behind me than those 88 federal criminal counts in front of me. And so I feel very good about Joe Biden.
The best part? This wasn't some dramatic live TV brawl. It cut deeper because it was simple, direct, and rooted in the everyday facts Californians can't escape. That's why it hurt. When someone says the emperor has no clothes, people laugh. But when someone says the emperor's palace has rats, mold, and a leaking roof, suddenly he looks less like royalty and more like a slumlord. The reactions were immediate. The media smelled blood, and even people who once thought Newsom was untouchable began raising eyebrows. Nothing destroys a carefully polished image faster than undeniable reality, especially when it's delivered with surgical precision. Lindi Li didn't just point out Gavin's flaws, she embarrassed him by making his whole brand look like a glossy vacation brochure that conveniently leaves out the bedbugs. And the fallout? Californians, already fed up with high rents, soaring bills, and endless commutes, suddenly had a voice saying what they'd been thinking all along. Maybe Gavin isn't the golden boy he believes he is. Maybe he's just the guy who looks good on a campaign poster, but can't manage a state that's starting to resemble a scene from Mad Max. And if you're aiming for the White House, being exposed as a glorified hair model with a failing record is about the worst look possible.
He mentions 4 machinations that he plans to use in order to circumvent Trump, or in his words, Trump-proof democracy. And I just want to say, before I go into the 4 different measures, He is basically saying the American people cannot be trusted to make the right decision, so I have to engage in these really slimy and subversive measures to undermine the will of the American people.
Here's the kicker. People can forgive a lot in politics. Scandals, mistakes, even bad policy. But hypocrisy? That's unforgivable. And Lee put Gavin's hypocrisy on full display like it was the headline act of a Broadway show. While he tries to brand himself as America's savior in waiting, his own state is bleeding money, residents, and patience. That contrast doesn't just bruise his ego, it detonates the entire narrative he's been selling. Suddenly, Gavin isn't the dazzling frontrunner anymore. He's the guy scrambling to recover, spinning desperately to outrun humiliation. But the problem with exposure is once people see the cracks, they can't unsee them. No amount of hair gel or polished speeches can cover them up. The real humiliation wasn't just the exposure, it was how fast it spread. Newsom has always been the master of controlling the narrative. He looks calm while chaos swirls around him. But once Lindi Li lit the match, the smoke spread everywhere. Suddenly, Gavin looked less like a confident leader and more like an overpaid firefighter who forgot to bring a hose.
If you're not going to be a good person, can you please not be a pathological liar at the very least?
He's unable to do that. They're conjoined.
I want to say, so he is out there doing a 180 on trans, but he's been on the forefront of trans advocacy all of these years. Are you treating us like, why are you treating us like idiots? Or that we were born yesterday? We remember distinctly, he was one of the most ardent trans warriors. Not only that, he has a gumption to rewrite history and say that he knew all along that Biden's brain was melting.
The first wave of embarrassment came from the media. Reporters usually treat Gavin like a shiny object they don't want to scratch, covering every press conference as though he's delivering wisdom instead of recycled talking points. But Lee's bluntness was impossible to ignore. Her points weren't abstract. They were painfully obvious. Homelessness isn't just numbers in a report. It's tents on sidewalks, needles in playgrounds, the kind of problem even tourists can't miss when they come for Golden Gate selfies, but instead stumble into scenes that look straight out of a zombie movie. So when Lee laid out the failures, the press had no choice but to pile on. And here's the thing, the media loves blood, especially when it drips from someone they once treated like royalty. Suddenly the stories weren't about Gavin's perfect speeches or eyebrow raises. They were about the mess hiding under the hair gel. And nothing makes a politician squirm faster than watching yesterday's fans start digging for dirt. The second wave came from Californians themselves. Because let's be real, Gavin has always downplayed massive problems like they're minor inconveniences. Wildfires? Just smoke. Homelessness? We're working on it. Taxes? A necessary sacrifice? Blackouts? Think of them as romantic candlelight dinners. But Californians aren't buying it anymore. You can only sell sacrifice for so long before people realize they're the ones paying the price. While their governor seems more focused on rehearsing for national office than fixing the state he's already running.
Go through the force.
His first thing is a special election.
What does that mean?
A special session of the state legislature. He would just call them back and have them do a lightning round of Trump-proof measures that will circumvent his immigration enforcement and other, for example, the deployment of the National Guard. Basically, Trump-proof anything.
He lost that in court.
But he doesn't have that power.
He lost.
He is lying. He's just saying whatever. As I said before, he's just saying whatever he thinks his audience wants to hear.
Lindi Li gave people the words for the frustration they were already living. She didn't invent new complaints. She simply said out loud what Californians had been feeling, only louder, clearer, and without Gavin's glossy spin. Suddenly, coffee shops, dinner tables, and Reddit threads were buzzing. Folks who once shrugged and accepted the chaos started asking, if this guy can't handle California, how's he supposed to run the entire country? It's like watching a chef burn toast and then announce he's ready for a Michelin star kitchen. Then came the political insiders. You know the type, smiling in your face while secretly waiting for you to trip. Gavin has been floated as a presidential contender for years, mostly because he looks like Central Casting's idea of a future president. But Lee cracked that image. When your state is bleeding residents and businesses, when your policies read more like Instagram captions than actual solutions, and when someone like Lee calls it out in a way that sticks, you stop looking like a savior and start looking like damaged goods. And here's the real sting. The humiliation came from outside his usual battlefield. If a political rival had attacked, he could dismiss it as partisan noise. If the media had pressed him, he could cry bias. But Lindi Li? She blindsided him from a place he couldn't dismiss. It was like a boxer getting knocked out by the water boy. He never saw it coming, and now he's flat on the mat while the crowd cheers.
Gavin Newsom was on the front lines of defending Biden. He wasn't just a defender and champion of Biden. He was the strongest. He debated DeSantis on the national stage. He went out of his way to, frankly, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He lied to the American people about the fitness of the president. He went out there again and again and said he was fine. Meanwhile, people like me were punished.
Of course, Gavin tried to spin his way out. That's his specialty. Take a disaster, sprinkle on some charm, and convince people it's handled. But here's the problem. When the facts are staring everyone in the face, charm just looks like desperation. He can claim he's solving homelessness, but people still step over tents outside Whole Foods. He can boast about innovation, but everyone knows someone who just packed a U-Haul for Nevada. He can dream about the White House, but most people wonder if he's fit to run a neighborhood HOA. That's why Li's humiliation cuts so deep. She didn't just call out his failures, she spotlighted the massive gap between his ambition and his reality. He wants to be president, but he's running California like a messy group project. He wants to be seen as a progressive visionary, but his vision doesn't include affordable rent. He wants to be the Democrats' golden boy, but lately he's looking more like fool's gold, the kind that shines until you realize it's worthless. And here's the kicker. This humiliation has staying power. Most political scandals are like bad reality TV, loud for a week, then forgotten. But Li's takedown stuck because it tapped into frustrations that haven't gone anywhere. Californians don't need reporters to remind them of daily struggles. They live them. Businesses don't need headlines to explain why they're leaving. They're already gone. Newsom can't smile his way out of this one. The receipts are too obvious.